The plight of poor South Africans is back in the spotlight, with political parties and advocacy groups raising concerns over the government's plan to slash just over 20 billion rands from the grant budget. For more on this, I'm joined by Neil Coleman, Senior Policy Specialist at the Institute for Economic Justice. A very good afternoon to you, Neil. Thanks very much for your time. Do you reckon that the fact that, government wants to slash 20 billion rands, does that necessarily mean or necessarily translate into an intention to actually cut the SRD grant, as some people are arguing?
Yeah, Boya, there are two things in the medium-term budget policy statement that created a lot of alarm. The one was the issue that you raised, cutting 20 billion. And remember, every year grants are increased by inflation. So if you take that into account, there should be at least a nominal increase at the level of inflation. So the 20 billion rand can only be explained by a reduction somewhere. The Treasury in the medium-term budget policy statement documents made it clear that they had not provided for the SRD grant for 2025-2026, which would mean that 17 million people now applying for the grant every month are in the dark as to whether the SRD grant is going to continue from March next year. And this is in the face of commitments by the President in his State of the Nation address and again in the State of Parliament address to improve and extend the SRD grant as a basis for introducing a system of basic income. And we know it's an open secret in South Africa amongst policy circles and more broadly that Treasury is opposed to this grant. They're opposed to basic income, and they've tried to terminate it or replace it on a number of different occasions. And they signaled that clearly in the medium-term budget policy statement. When commentators said that this is now a decision by government to terminate the grant, I cautioned that we mustn't prematurely say that government will terminate the grant, because actually it would be a suicidal measure to terminate a grant that, according to researchers, benefits indirectly half the population. But there are these mixed signals which keep on being given, and this is causing a lot of confusion and dismay and distress amongst particularly the poorest part of the population at whom this grant is aimed.
Well, your organization has even moved to go to court around the online, how the system excludes a lot of grant beneficiaries. And you also complained, you complained previously about how Treasury seems to decide on this matter. The question, I guess, is whether the right conversations are taking place wherever, where it matters.
Yeah. They're not for you, and that's very worrying. Is that the policy discussions, we are very involved in the policy debates, as you know, and have been for many years. And I can tell you that the policy discussions that are taking place by Treasury in particular, who have commissioned a study on this issue, are taking place completely behind closed doors. There's no transparency whatsoever, and they have no authority or competence to be doing this. Nobody says Treasury shouldn't have a view, shouldn't participate in the discussions, but the policy department, which is responsible for making policy on this issue, is the Department of Social Development. And the presidency set up a special task team on basic income to begin to map out a transition to a permanent system of basic income. But Treasury acts as a government within a government, and we know that, and this has been happening for years, not only with basic income and the SRD, but on many other fronts as well. And it's time that government actually intervened, and that Treasury is told that, when it comes to these big policy questions, they cannot unilaterally determine these sorts of issues. It's very concerning that government is not coming out clearly on the matter. They need to set the matter straight. It's not good enough to wait for the President's State of the Nation address in February next year and next year's budget. We need to know now, what are these options that are being considered? Treasury's vaguely referring to labor market activation measures that need to be linked to grants. They also, very disturbingly, were, you mentioned our court case. In the court case, as you said, we contest the use of digital measures, which are excluding millions of grant beneficiaries. The current situation is that all grant applicants, apart from the SRD grant applicants, old age pension, child support grant, etc., apply for their grants physically in SASSA offices. What Treasury is now saying is that they want to migrate all of them to the SRD system, a system which has been a disaster in terms of excluding millions and millions of people. And this is part of the answer to your question as to why they're reducing the budget by 20 billion. They are saying they expect to reduce the numbers by using this digital system. And we're not against using some form of digital measures, but it must be combined with other measures like is currently the case with physical applications, verification of people's documents and so on in the offices, ensuring that people who don't have access to technology and to resources can get access to officials who can assist them in going through the process. The whole point is not to exclude people, but is to include people who qualify.
Neil, I mean, we've seriously run out of time, but because this matter always, comes up, isn't the reason Treasury appears to be stronger or have more of a say because perhaps compared to other departments, they have more talent and they have institutional memory and they tend to be more powerful compared to other departments? Isn't that the problem?
It is part of the problem, but I would question the talent part. They are more powerful and they're more resourced, but they lack thinkers and leadership within Treasury who are in touch with the latest thinking in terms of economic and social development policy. I know you're out of time, but one more point to say is that international evidence now shows that income transfers have a major developmental and economic multiplier impact. And Treasury is simply not engaging with that evidence. Okay. They refuse to engage with us and other people who are experts in this area. So something drastic has to change.